The air in the lobby of the Sterling Tower felt perpetually stale, a stale hum of fluorescent lights and recycled ambition. It was a place people rushed through, not a place they lingered. The polished chrome gleamed, yes, but it reflected only the hurried faces of those on their way to more important things. Anya knew this lobby better than most. She was part of the background, the quiet motion that kept the grand edifice running unnoticed. Her uniform, a bland gray, was designed for invisibility. Her job title was janitorial engineer, which sounded fancier than it felt. It meant she cleaned up the messes others left behind. She'd been working here for 3 years, ever since the factory closed and her husband's construction business dried up. Every stain on the carpet, every smudge on the glass doors, every forgotten coffee cup was a silent testament to her days. The people who worked in the tower, the executives and lawyers and financiers, barely met her eye. They were giants striding through her world, their conversations a distant, incomprehensible murmur of millions and deadlines. She was the earth beneath their feet, essential but unseen. Today, the lobby felt particularly grand. A large floral arrangement, exotic and fragrant, had been placed near the security desk. The scent was a jarring contrast to the usual sterile odor of cleaning supplies and anxiety. Anya paused, her mop bucket beside her, just to breathe it in for a moment. It was a small thing, a fleeting escape from the grime and the gray. But even these small moments of sensory relief were rare. Her shift had started hours before dawn, and the weight of the day, even with its quiet indignities, pressed down on her. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's get started. She was on her way to the executive suites, the floors that hummed with power and prestige. The hushed carpets absorbed the sound of her footsteps. She saw them sometimes, the important people, their faces etched with worry or triumphant smiles. They were characters in a play she was only allowed to clean the stage for. No one asked for her opinion. No one noticed if she was tired, or if her back ached, or if she skipped her lunch break to finish a task before a deadline she barely understood. The lobby was a stage for them, and she was the stagehand. There was a subtle tension in the air today, a nervous energy she couldn't quite place. Usually, the Sterling Tower was a fortress of calm, powered by the certainty of wealth. But today, a flicker of something else, something less confident, seemed to ripple through the silence. Anya stopped pushing her mop, leaning against the cool metal of her bucket. She saw a well-dressed man talking intensely on his phone near the elevator bank. His voice was low but urgent. He paced, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble. The man looked stressed, his jaw tight. Anya recognized that look. She'd seen it on her husband's face countless times when the bills were overwhelming. It was the look of someone facing a storm. She averted her gaze, not wanting to intrude, not wanting to be noticed. Her purpose was to be invisible, a ghost haunting the edges of their polished world. But even ghosts could sense the shifting winds. The lobby, usually so predictable, felt like it was holding its breath. She wondered what was happening that made even the important people look so shaken. It was these little things, the unease in the air, the frantic phone calls of strangers, that made Anya feel a strange connection to the lives unfolding around her, lives she would never truly be a part of. The massive glass doors of the Sterling Tower swished open, admitting a gust of the city's biting wind, a stark contrast to the climate-controlled air within. It was late November, and the sky outside was a bruised, indifferent gray. Inside, the lobby remained a sanctuary of hushed tones and polished surfaces, a place where the weather, and indeed the world, felt distant and irrelevant. Anya, her gray uniform a smudge against the gleaming chrome, pushed her mop with practiced, rhythmic strokes. The scent of lemon-scented cleaner was a familiar, almost comforting, counterpoint to the faint hum of the building's machinery. She'd been here since 4 a.m, long before the first executive arrived to conquer the day. Her world was one of discarded coffee cups, scuff marks on the marble floor, and the faint, lingering scent of expensive perfume or aftershave. The people who worked here were like migratory birds. Their lives lived in the higher altitudes of ambition and profit, only occasionally touching down in this grand lobby before soaring away again. Anya, grounded in the everyday details, was the quiet observer of their comings and goings. Today, however, there was a ripple in the usual placid surface of the lobby. A small crowd had gathered near the reception desk, their hushed voices a tight knot of anxiety. Anya, usually adept at blending into the background, found her usual route blocked. She could see the flicker of concern on the faces of the security guards, men who were normally impassive. Someone important, Anya surmised, was causing a stir. She felt a familiar pang of isolation, a stark reminder of her position on the periphery. She glanced at her watch. Her break was soon, a brief respite before she tackled the executive suites on the 30th floor. These were the floors that buzzed with a different kind of energy, a potent mix of power and urgency. She usually saw sleek briefcases, sharp suits, and faces that held the weight of big decisions. But today, waiting for her turn to get to the elevators, Anya noticed something else. A man stood a little apart from the agitated group, his back to her. He wore an old, slightly too large trench coat, the kind that had seen better days, its collar turned up against an invisible chill. He wasn't dressed like the usual inhabitants of Stirling Tower. His shoes looked worn, and his hands, shoved deep in his pockets, seemed to be clutching something. There was a quiet stillness about him, a stark contrast to the nervous energy radiating from everyone else. He seemed almost out of place, like a forgotten piece of furniture in a meticulously curated room. Anya felt a flicker of recognition, not of his face, but of his aura. It was the quiet dignity of someone who had faced hardship and hadn't broken. She watched him for a moment longer, the clatter of the city outside fading as her attention focused on this lone figure. He held himself with a sort of weary resilience. He didn't demand attention, but he held a certain gravity, a weight that set him apart from the anxious bustle. Anya wondered who he was, what brought him to this place of calculated success, and what he was waiting for. The lobby, usually so defined by its wealthy inhabitants, suddenly seemed to hold a different kind of story, one whispered by a man in an old coat. His presence was a question mark in the otherwise predictable narrative of the Stirling Tower. The receptionist, a woman with perfectly coiffed hair and an air of practiced politeness, was speaking in hushed, urgent tones into her phone. Anya, mop still in hand, finally managed to squeeze past the small knot of anxious people. She kept her eyes down, trained on the polished floor, a habit born of years of needing to be invisible. But her ears caught snippets of the conversation. Words like unforeseen circumstances and critical meeting floated in the air. She reached the bank of elevators, her usual destination. The doors were slow to open today, as if they too sensed the unusual tension. When they slid open, revealing the gleaming interior, Anya saw him. The man in the old trench coat was already there, standing quietly in the corner. He didn't push, didn't shove, just waited with an unnerving patience that seemed to absorb the frantic energy around him. He looked, Anya thought, like a man who had learned to wait for everything. He finally stepped into the elevator, and Anya, with a slight hesitation, followed. There were a few other people inside, all dressed in the sharp, expensive attire of the tower's tenants. They all seemed to be studiously ignoring the man in the worn coat, their gazes fixed on the flickering floor indicator. Anya did the same, but she could feel his presence, a quiet anchor in the swirling sea of anxiety. The elevator began its smooth ascent, a silent monolith climbing towards the sky. As the floors passed, Anya's mind drifted. She thought about her own life, the quiet routines, the constant worry about bills. She thought about her husband, his slumped shoulders after a fruitless day searching for work. It was easy to get lost in the spectacle of wealth, but it was the quiet struggles that Anya understood best. This man, with his old coat and his calm demeanor, held a certain familiarity, a resonance that echoed her own unspoken burdens. The elevator doors opened on the 30th floor, the executive level. The air here was even more rarefied, the carpeting thicker, the walls adorned with abstract art that probably cost more than Anya's rent for a year. The usual bustle was absent. Instead, there was an eerie quiet, the kind that precedes a storm. People were gathered in small groups, their faces grim. The man in the trench coat stepped out with the same quiet grace, blending into the edge of the room. Anya watched as he moved towards a large window that overlooked the city. He didn't join any of the groups. He simply stood there, his hands still in his pockets, looking out at the sprawling metropolis below. The sunlight, breaking through the clouds at last, caught the worn fabric of his coat, giving it a strange, almost dignified glow. Anya wondered if he was waiting for something, or if he was simply observing, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. His presence was a puzzle, and for the first time in a long time working at Sterling Tower, Anya felt a prickle of genuine curiosity, a feeling that something much larger was at play than just a missed meeting. The man in the trench coat remained by the window, a solitary figure against the panoramic cityscape. Anya, having completed her initial tasks on the 30th floor, found herself drawn to his quiet presence. She continued with her duties, wiping down counters in the reception area, her movements deliberately slow, allowing her to observe him without being obvious. The hushed conversations around her continued to orbit the same theme. A sudden, unexpected crisis. It seemed the king of the corporate castle had fallen ill, or perhaps a deal had imploded, leaving a void at the very top. He didn't speak to anyone. He didn't ask questions. He just stood there, a monument of quiet contemplation, his gaze fixed on something far beyond the gleaming skyscrapers and frantic activity of the Sterling Tower. Anya found herself attributing a deep wisdom to his stillness. He looked like a man who had seen a lot, who understood the ephemeral nature of power and the cyclical tides of fortune. He was an anomaly in this temple of ambition, a whisper of the ordinary in the face of extraordinary chaos. She wondered if he was connected to the crisis, or if he was simply another lost soul caught in its wake. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Executives, their usual crisp composure frayed, paced with a desperate energy. Phones rang incessantly, each ring adding to the crescendo of unease. Anya, for her part, focused on the small details. She noticed a stray paperclip on the floor, a smudge on a framed photograph of the company's formidable CEO, Mr. Sterling himself. These were the anchors of her reality, the tangible elements that grounded her amidst the swirling uncertainty. Then, for the first time, the man in the trench coat moved. He turned from the window, his eyes, a surprisingly gentle shade of blue, met Anya for a fleeting moment. There was no judgment in his gaze, no condescension, just a quiet acknowledgement. It was a fleeting connection, but it felt significant, a brief spark of shared humanity in an otherwise detached environment. He then walked with deliberate steps towards an unoccupied desk, settling himself into the plush executive chair as if he belonged there, but without any airs of ownership. Anya paused her work. She watched him intently. He took something from his coat pocket, a small, folded piece of paper. He unfolded it slowly, revealing a child's drawing. It was a crayon drawing, vibrant but crude, of a sun with a smiley face, a lopsided house, and two stick figures holding hands. He stared at it for a long moment, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. It was a gesture so out of place, so profoundly human, that it momentarily halted the frantic energy of the room. The significance of the drawing, held by this man in the worn coat, in this opulent office during a company crisis, was a mystery Anya couldn't comprehend. It was a symbol of something pure and simple, a stark contrast to the complex financial machinations that usually filled these halls. She felt a pull, a deep, unspoken understanding of the weight that small, colorful piece of paper might carry. It spoke of a life outside these walls, a life that perhaps offered a different kind of value, a different kind of wealth. And she knew, with a certainty that surprised her, that this seemingly insignificant act of the man looking at a child's drawing held a deeper meaning, a clue to something larger that was unfolding. The executives, caught in the vortex of their immediate crisis, had barely registered the man's arrival or his quiet contemplation by the window. Their world was one of balance sheets and market shares, of projections and profit margins. A child's drawing, clutched in the anonymous hand of a stranger, was not on their radar, but Anya saw it. She saw the man in the old coat settle into what was clearly a prestigious office, and she saw the faded crayon strokes on the paper he held. He carefully placed the drawing on the polished mahogany desk, centering it as if it were a prized possession. Then, he reached into another pocket and produced a simple, battered leather wallet. He opened it, and Anya, from her post near the reception area, caught a glimpse of its contents. It wasn't filled with an abundance of credit cards or crisp $100 bills. Instead, she saw a few folded dollar bills, most of them looking well-worn, and a single, faded photograph. The photograph was of a smiling woman and two young children, their faces innocent and bright. The contrast was striking. Here, in the heart of corporate power, was a man who seemed to carry his personal life with him, not hidden away in a briefcase, but openly accessible, symbolized by a child's drawing and a family photograph. It was a quiet act of defiance against the sterile professionalism that permeated every corner of the Sterling Tower. He didn't try to impress, didn't try to project an image of power or authority. He simply was. His quiet dignity, his evident possession of intangible riches, was more compelling than any expensive suit or confident swagger. Anya continued to clean, her movements more deliberate now. She wiped the glass of the framed photograph of Mr. Sterling, the building's founder, ensuring it gleamed. She wondered about the man's story. Was he a visitor, a consultant, or something else entirely, someone whose presence here defied the usual hierarchy? The very fact that he was in the CEO's office, and no one seemed to be challenging him, was a mystery. He exuded an aura of quiet authority, not born of title, but of something earned through a different kind of currency. The atmosphere in the executive suite remained charged with anxious energy, but the man in the trench coat was a still point in the storm. He finally picked up a desk phone, his expression unreadable. He dialed a number, his voice when he spoke was calm but firm. "Yes, I'm here," he said. "Things are a bit fluid. But I'm here." The simple act of him making a phone call, his calm demeanor amidst the panic, was incredibly powerful. Anya felt an undeniable pull towards him, a sense that his quiet presence was more significant than all the frantic dashing about. The weight of the overlooked lobby, the ignored custodians, the unseen struggles, all seemed to crystallize in this moment. Here was a man who held a child's drawing and a family photograph, seemingly unfazed by the high-stakes drama unfolding around him. Anya couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet strength, his unspoken narrative, was a parable waiting to be understood. She wondered what it was about him, about that worn coat and that simple drawing, that commanded such an unspoken respect, even in this temple of material wealth. The crisis on the 30th floor deepened with every passing minute. The urgent whispers grew louder, the pace of pacing executives quickened. Anya continued her duties, her senses sharp, catching snatches of conversation and noting the subtle shifts in body language. She noticed a woman, impeccably dressed in a sharp business suit, approach the man's door, her face a mask of worried inquiry. The woman, who Anya recognized as Mrs. Albright, Mr. Sterling's executive assistant, paused at the threshold, her brow furrowed in confusion. Mrs. Albright knocked gently. The man in the trench coat looked up from his examination of the child's drawing, a subtle shift in his demeanor. It was as if his focus had momentarily left the colorful depiction of sunlight and houses, returning to the present reality of the Sterling Tower. He gestured for her to enter, his expression unreadable. Anya held her breath, an involuntary spectator to this unseen drama. Mrs. Albright stepped inside, her eyes widening slightly as she took in the scene. The man in the casual attire occupying the CEO's seat, the child's drawing prominently displayed on the desk. She spoke, her voice a pitch higher than usual, laced with apprehension. "Mr. Davies," she began, her voice tinged with uncertainty, as if she wasn't quite sure she was addressing the right person, or if the person she was addressing was in the right place. Anya recognized the name, Davies, not as a high-level executive, but it was familiar in a distant echo. The man, who Anya now understood was called Mr. Davies, gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Yes, Alina," he replied, his voice smooth and steady. "I'm here." He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Come, sit down, we have much to discuss." His words were calm, definitive, a stark contrast to the frantic energy of the rest of the floor. Anya could see Mrs. Albright's hesitation, her internal conflict playing out on her face. She was clearly accustomed to a different kind of executive, a different kind of formality, but something in Mr. Davies' quiet confidence, his unwavering gaze, seemed to disarm her. She perched on the edge of the offered chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Anya continued her work, polishing a framed award on the wall, her ears straining to catch every word. The conversation that followed was low and measured, punctuated by Mrs. Albright's occasional, startled exclamations. Anya couldn't make out the specifics, but she sensed that Mr. Davies was not just visiting. He was somehow involved in the very core of the company's current predicament. The man with the crayon drawing and the worn coat, now revealed as Mr. Davies, was not an outsider observing a crisis. He was at its center, his calm presence a beacon in the storm. Anya felt a profound sense of awe. She had always believed kindness and dignity were important, but seeing them embodied in this man, in this intense situation, was a revelation. It was as if the forgotten lobby, the invisible workers, and the child's simple drawing had all come together to reveal a truth about true strength, a strength that didn't need to shout or boast. He spoke for a while longer, and Mrs. Albright's initial apprehension seemed to melt away, replaced by a growing astonishment. Anya saw her nod more vigorously now, her eyes wide with comprehension. Mr. Davies then rose from the CEO's chair, the child's drawing held gently in his hand. He looked at Mrs. Albright, a faint acknowledgement in his eyes, before turning towards the door and walking out with the same unassuming grace he had arrived with. Anya instinctively stepped back, pretending to be engrossed in her cleaning, but her heart pounded. She knew she had just witnessed something significant, a moment that shifted the very fabric of the Sterling Tower. As the man now known as Mr. Davies exited the CEO's office, Anya strategically positioned herself by the hallway, making sure her cleaning cart was in the way, forcing a moment of interaction. She wanted to see him again, to try and decipher the enigma he presented. He paused, his eyes meeting hers again, the same gentle acknowledgement present. This time, Anya dared a small, almost imperceptible nod, and to her surprise, he returned it, a subtle crease forming around his eyes that hinted at a genuine smile. Mrs. Albright followed him out, her face a mixture of bewilderment and dawning realization. She saw Anya, but her gaze seemed distant, her mind still replaying the conversation she'd just had. Mr. Davies, meanwhile, walked past Anya, his old trench coat seeming to possess a dignity all its own. He didn't rush. He didn't seem preoccupied with the chaos that still churned around the executive suites. He was moving at his own pace, a quiet force of nature in a whirlwind. Anya watched him head in the direction of the elevators. She knew her break was approaching, and she felt an almost irresistible urge to follow, to understand more. But her training, her ingrained sense of duty, kept her tethered to her tasks. She looked down at her mop, the familiar metallic scent of the cleaning solution a grounding presence. She wondered if the child's drawing had anything to do with the company's current troubles. It seemed so incongruous, so out of place in this world of high finance. He reached the elevator bank, and as he waited, he pulled out that same old leather wallet. This time, he extracted a solitary $5 bill. It was worn, creased, clearly having seen many hands and pockets. He looked at it for a moment, his expression contemplative, almost reverent. Then, with a deliberate motion, he handed it to the uniformed security guard by the elevator, a man who for the last hour had been looking increasingly harried and stressed. The guard, a burly man named Frank, looked surprised, then confused. He was used to people ignoring him or worse, dismissing him. He stammered, "Sir, I can't accept this." But Mr. Davies simply smiled, a warm, genuine smile that transformed his face. "For your trouble," he said softly, "and for being here when things get tough." He pressed the bill into Frank's hand, his grip firm but not demanding. Anya, hidden in plain sight behind a potted plant, saw Frank's jaw go slack. He looked from the $5 bill to Mr. Davies, retreating back, his expression a mixture of disbelief and a dawning, profound gratitude. It was a small gesture, a $5 bill, but the way it was given, the way it was received, felt like it carried the weight of a fortune, a silent acknowledgement of shared struggle and quiet heroism. Anya finally stepped out for her break, her mind buzzing with what she had witnessed. She knew the $5 bill wasn't just money. It was a symbol. It was a testament to Mr. Davies' understanding of the unseen struggles of others, a quiet recognition of the people who held the building together in ways that didn't involve stock options or corner offices. She saw Frank, the security guard, clutch the bill in his hand, a look of wonder on his face. He was no longer just a guard on duty. He was a recipient of an unexpected act of grace. She found her usual quiet spot in the small, sterile break room. The coffee was weak, the vending machine snacks a poor substitute for a proper meal. But today, something felt different. The mundane seemed to shimmer with possibility. As she sat there, a young woman, barely out of her teens, entered the break room. She was wearing a cleaner's uniform, similar to Anya, but newer, less worn. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her small shoulders were slumped with a weariness that went beyond physical fatigue. Anya recognized her from the ground floor, Maria, a new hire who was still finding her feet. Maria sat down heavily on a plastic chair, burying her face in her hands. She let out a soft, hiccuping sob. Anya hesitated for a moment, her own internal battles playing out. She knew what it was like to feel overwhelmed, to feel utterly alone in a crowd. The image of Mr. Davies' quiet generosity, his understanding of unseen hardship, spurred her into action. "Is everything all right?" Anya asked, her voice gentle, careful not to intrude but offering an opening. Maria flinched, then slowly looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. She tried to speak, but another sob escaped her. Anya slid off her chair and sat down beside her, her movements unhurried. "You don't have to say anything if you don't want to," Anya continued. "But sometimes, just having someone listen helps." Maria took a deep, shaky breath. It's my son," she finally managed to whisper, her voice cracking. "He's sick. The doctor said he needs a special medication. And I don't have the money, not for this. And I can't get to work early enough or stay late enough to earn enough to cover it." Her voice broke again, the despair evident in every syllable. Anya's heart ached. She saw her own struggles reflected in Maria's young face, the crushing weight of responsibility and the limitations of a low wage. Anya reached into her own worn uniform pocket. She hesitated for only a second, then pulled out the crumpled $5 bill Frank had been given. It felt like a tangible piece of Mr. Davies' kindness, a seed planted in the Sterling Tower's sterile ground. She held it out to Maria. "Here," Anya said softly. "Take this. It's not much, but maybe it can help. Maybe it's the start of something." Maria looked at the bill, then at Anya, tears streaming down her face. "But you," she began, her voice choked with emotion. Anya shook her head. "I'll be all right," she said, a quiet certainty in her tone. "We all need a little help sometimes." The $5 bill, once a symbol of a powerful man's quiet generosity, had now become a symbol of shared resilience, a small spark of hope passed from one struggling person to another. Maria, clutching the $5 bill, looked at Anya with a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. Her sobs began to subside, replaced by shaky breaths. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know what to say. This means so much." She looked down at the crumpled bill in her hand, as if seeing it for the first time. It was a small amount, certainly not enough to cover the cost of her son's medication, but in that moment it represented something more. Hope. It was a tangible sign that she wasn't entirely alone. That kindness, even in its smallest form, existed in this daunting city. Anya offered a small, comforting smile. "Just keep your chin up," she said, her voice warm. "There are good people in the world. You just have to keep looking." She knew the words were simple, perhaps even a cliché, but she meant them with every fiber of her being. She had just witnessed a powerful testament to that very truth, the quiet generosity of Mr. Davies. Maria gently folded the bill and tucked it into her own pocket. She looked at Anya, her eyes clearer now, a flicker of resolve replacing the despair. "I will," she said, her voice stronger. "I promise." She stood up, her movements still a little unsteady, but with a newfound purpose. Anya watched her go, a sense of quiet satisfaction warming her. It was a small encounter, a brief exchange in a sterile break room, but it felt significant. The ripple of Mr. Davies' kindness had spread, touching not just Frank, the security guard, but now Maria, a young mother facing an impossible situation. As Maria left, Anya picked up her coffee cup. She glanced out the break room window, her gaze sweeping over the vast expanse of the city. The Sterling Tower stood tall, a monument to ambition and wealth. But Anya now saw it differently. It wasn't just a place of power and prestige. It was also a place where small acts of kindness could take root and grow, where hidden depths of compassion existed beneath polished surfaces. She thought about the man in the old coat, the child's drawing, the $5 bill. These weren't just objects. They were vessels of a profound human connection, a reminder that true wealth wasn't just measured in dollars and cents, but in empathy and shared humanity. Suddenly, a thought struck Anya. She remembered the second sandwich she had packed for lunch, a simple ham and cheese on rye. Usually, she would eat it herself, a solitary meal before returning to her duties. But today, she felt a different impulse. She looked at the worn leather wallet she kept in her own pocket, the one with the faded photo of her smiling children inside. She thought of Maria's worried face, and she thought of the man who had so freely shared his unexpected fortune. She took her sandwich out of her bag. It wasn't a gourmet meal, just a simple sandwich, but it represented sustenance, comfort. She went back to her cart, her lunch bag in hand, and headed back towards the 30th floor, a new mission forming in her mind. Returning to the 30th floor, Anya felt a renewed sense of purpose. The executive suites were still buzzing with a worried energy, but the intense panic of earlier seemed to have subsided slightly, replaced by a more organized, albeit still tense, atmosphere. She spotted Frank, the security guard, near the elevators, his usual stoic expression softened by a subtle glow of wonder. He still held the $5 bill, now carefully folded and tucked into the breast pocket of his uniform, visible like a badge of honor. He caught Anya's eye and gave her a small, grateful nod, a silent acknowledgement of the moment they had shared. Anya didn't linger. She headed towards the office where she had seen Mr. Davies earlier. The door was still ajar, and as she approached, she could hear the low murmur of voices inside. She hesitated, her ingrained training to remain invisible warring with a new sense of urgency, a need to connect with this mysterious benefactor. She could see Mr. Davies still seated at the CEO's desk, though the child's drawing was now placed carefully to one side. He was speaking with Mrs. Albright, his tone still calm and measured, but with an underlying authority that commanded attention. Anya took a deep breath, and instead of turning away, she gently pushed the door open a little wider, making her presence known without being intrusive. Both Mr. Davies and Mrs. Albright looked up. Mrs. Albright's expression held a flicker of surprise, as if she had momentarily forgotten the presence of the cleaning staff in the midst of their high-level discussions. Mr. Davies, however, simply offered that same quiet, knowing smile. "Good afternoon," Anya said, her voice clear and steady. I noticed you might be working late, and I brought an extra sandwich in case you hadn't had lunch." She held out her own modest sandwich, wrapped in wax paper, a stark contrast to the catered meals that usually graced these executive desks. Mrs. Albright looked taken aback, her eyes darting from Anya's earnest face to the humble sandwich, then to Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies, however, extended his hand, his gaze warm. "That's very thoughtful of you," he said, his voice carrying a genuine warmth that Anya hadn't heard in the rest of the executives. He accepted the sandwich, his fingers brushing lightly against Anya's. The contact felt electric, not in a romantic sense, but in a profound acknowledgement of shared humanity. "Please join us for a moment if you have time," he invited, gesturing to a spare chair. Anya's heart skipped a beat. She, the invisible cleaner, being invited to sit with the powerful. She remained standing, a little hesitant, but touched by the genuine invitation. "Thank you, sir," she replied, "but I must maintain my schedule. Mr. Davies nodded understandingly. "Of course," he said, "but your kindness is deeply appreciated. It's important to remember those who keep things running, even when no one is looking." He then carefully placed Anya's sandwich beside his own, not on the desk, but on a small side table, as if to say it was equally worthy of respect. Anya's throat tightened. This was more than just politeness, it was true recognition. As Anya turned to leave, Mr. Davies spoke again, his voice tinged with a gentle curiosity. "You've been working here a long time, haven't you?" Anya paused at the doorway. "3 years, sir," she replied softly. Mr. Davies' smile widened slightly. "I thought so. You have a way of seeing things, of noticing the details others miss." Anya felt a flush of warmth. It was the first time in years anyone in this building had acknowledged her capacity for observation, for perception. She had always felt like a spectator to their lives, but now he was acknowledging her as a witness, perhaps even a participant in a different way. She left them then, the sandwich now a symbol not just of Anya's lunch, but of her own burgeoning presence and Mr. Davies' remarkable ability to see the value in everyone. The second sandwich, the one intended for her own solitary meal, had taken on a new meaning, a silent offering of connection in the heart of the Sterling Towers storm. And as she returned to her tasks, Anya knew that the most significant interactions often happened in the quiet moments, in the gestures that were easily overlooked by those too busy to see. The crisis on the 30th floor appeared to be reaching a resolution of sorts. The hurried footsteps had become more purposeful, the hushed conversations less frantic. Anya, while working in the hallway, saw people emerging from the CEO's office, their expressions a mixture of relief and a dawning understanding. Mrs. Albright emerged last, her usual immaculately composed demeanor replaced by a look of thoughtful contemplation. She paused as she saw Anya, and this time, her gaze held a warmth that hadn't been there before. "He's quite remarkable, isn't he?" Mrs. Albright said, her voice softer than Anya had ever heard it. Anya simply nodded, not wanting to pry but acknowledging the shared observation. "He has a way of cutting through the noise, Mrs. Albright continued as if speaking her thoughts aloud, "seeing what truly matters." She glanced back towards the office door, then at Anya. "You offered him your lunch, didn't you? A sandwich." Anya felt a blush creep up her neck. "Yes, ma'am," she said quietly. "It was just an extra one." Mrs. Albright smiled, a genuine, warm smile. "That simple act speaks volumes, you know. In a place like this, where everything is about acquisition and value, a gift freely given, it's a powerful statement." She then did something unexpected. She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a small, glossy business card and handed it to Anya. "Mr. Davies has asked me to extend an invitation to you," she said. "He'd like to speak with you again, at your convenience. He mentioned he'd like to hear more about your observations of the building." Anya took the card, her hands trembling slightly. It was a heavy card, embossed with gold lettering. It bore Mr. Davies' name and a private number, along with a prominent Sterling Tower logo. This was not the card of just any executive. It was the card of someone significant, someone who clearly held sway within the building. He wants to talk to me," Anya stammered, disbelief coloring her voice. "Yes," Mrs. Albright confirmed, her smile widening. "He said he believes people who notice the details are often the ones who truly understand how things work." Anya felt a dizzying sense of unreality. Her entire world had been the cleaning of floors and the wiping of surfaces, a life lived in the shadows. Now, inexplicably, she was being invited into the light to share her perspective with a man who seemed to see beyond the obvious. She thought of her children, of the struggles they faced, and a fragile sense of hope began to bloom within her. This invitation, this recognition from Mr. Davies, felt like a turning point, a moment where the invisible began to be seen. She murmured her thanks, clutching the card as if it were made of solid gold. Mrs. Albright gave her a final, encouraging nod before turning and walking away, leaving Anya standing in the hallway, the hum of the Sterling Tower suddenly sounding less like a constant drone and more like a symphony of unexpected possibilities. The second sandwich, the simple act of sharing, had opened a door she never imagined could exist, a testament to how a single, selfless gesture could rewrite one's destiny. The meeting room on the 56th floor was less ostentatious than the CEO's office, yet it exuded a quiet power. Large windows offered a breathtaking, almost overwhelming, view of the city, the same panorama that Anya had seen from the 30th floor, but from a grander vantage point. The furniture was tasteful and modern, not overly ornate, designed for conversation and contemplation rather than display. Anya sat in one of the plush chairs, her gray uniform feeling both out of place and, strangely, more comfortable than she expected, thanks to the warmth of the invitation. Mr. Davies entered, not with fanfare, but with his usual unassuming presence. He wore the same old trench coat, which Anya now realized was not a sign of poverty but of a deliberate choice, a testament to an enduring comfort, a rejection of fleeting trends. He sat across from her, the city spread out behind him like a silent, shimmering backdrop. Mrs. Albright was also present, seated to the side, her presence a quiet support. "Thank you for coming, Anya, Mr. Davies said, his voice warm and welcoming. "I apologize for the abruptness of it all, but events unfolded rather quickly." He gestured towards the view. "This building, like any complex system, has its visible operations, and then it has its unseen operations. The ones that keep everything functioning smoothly, the ones that are often taken for granted." He then looked directly at Anya, his gaze steady and intelligent. "I've spent my life observing systems, Anya. And I've learned that the most crucial insights often come from those who are closest to the ground, those who see the wear and tear, the subtle shifts, the things that aren't in the quarterly reports." He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You noticed things today, small things. The way Frank reacted to that $5 bill, the way Maria spoke about her son. You saw beyond the immediate problem to the human element beneath. That ability is rare, and it is valuable." Anya listened, stunned. He wasn't just being polite, he was genuinely interested in her perspective. She thought about her years cleaning the Sterling Tower, of the silent observations she had made, the unspoken narratives she had pieced together from discarded coffee cups and overheard snippets of conversation. She had always thought these insights were meaningless, simply the product of too much quiet time. I see what I see, sir," Anya replied softly. "I pay attention." Mr. Davies smiled. "And that, Anya, is the most important form of intelligence in any organization. The ability to see, to understand, to connect." He then explained, in broad strokes, that he was not merely an executive, but the majority shareholder of the Sterling Tower, a fact that had been kept quiet to avoid undue influence or distraction. The crisis that had unfolded earlier had been a serious threat to the company, and his discreet intervention had been necessary. He spoke about his philosophy of business, one that valued people over pure profit and community over cutthroat competition. He expressed his belief that the Sterling Tower could be more than just an office building. It could be a hub of innovation and support, a place where all employees, from the highest-ranking executive to the newest cleaning staff, felt valued and seen. And he saw in Anya, a trusted observer, someone who embodied the very principles he wanted to instill. He offered her a position, not on the cleaning staff, but as a liaison, a bridge between the administration and the building's employees, a person tasked with understanding and addressing the needs of everyone who worked within its walls. It was a role that utilized her keen observational skills and her innate empathy. Anya felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It was an opportunity so far beyond anything she had ever imagined. It was the ultimate vindication of a life lived in quiet service, a life where dignity and observation had always been her guiding lights. As Anya absorbed the magnitude of Mr. Davies' offer, a profound sense of realization settled upon her. She had always believed in the power of small kindnesses, in the inherent dignity of every human being, regardless of their station. Now, Mr. Davies, a man of immense wealth and influence, was not only acknowledging those beliefs, but actively seeking to build a larger system around them. He saw her, Anya, the invisible cleaner, as a valuable asset, a vital part of the Sterling Tower's future. She thought back to the small, almost insignificant events that had led to this moment. The scent of exotic flowers in the lobby, the anxious faces of the executives, Frank the security guard clutching the $5 bill, Maria's tearful confession, and her own decision to share her sandwich. Each small act, each moment of quiet observation, had been a thread weaving her towards this unexpected destiny. It was a parable unfolding in real time, where kindness, dignity, and the unseen virtues of ordinary people were proving to be the most valuable currency of all. Mr. Davies continued, his voice steady and encouraging. Your insights into the day-to-day realities of this building are invaluable, Anya. We want to create a more supportive environment for everyone who works here. And I believe you are the perfect person to help us achieve that. You understand the challenges faced by people like Frank, like Maria, and you can communicate those realities to us in a way that fosters genuine change. Anya found her voice, a little shaky but filled with a newfound strength. I don't know what to say, Mr. Davies. This is more than I ever dreamed of. Mr. Davies leaned forward slightly, his eyes conveying a sincere belief. It's not about dreaming, Anya. It's about seeing. It's about recognizing the inherent worth in every individual. And you do that. You have for years, I suspect, even when you didn't realize it yourself. He then explained the practicalities of the new role, sketching out a vision of a more inclusive and supportive Sterling Tower. He spoke of creating better amenities, fairer labor practices, and a culture where every employee felt acknowledged and respected. Anya listened, her mind racing with possibilities. She could finally help people like Maria, not just with a single sandwich, but with systemic change. She could ensure that Frank and others like him were seen and valued. As the meeting drew to a close, Anya felt a sense of profound gratitude, not just for the opportunity, but for the validation. Her years of quiet service, of unnoticed diligence, had not been in vain. They had led her to this moment, to a position where she could finally make a tangible difference. She looked at Mr. Davies, at his worn trench coat and his gentle eyes, and she saw not just a billionaire, but a kindred spirit, someone who understood the true meaning of wealth and influence. The meeting concluded with a handshake, a gesture of mutual respect. Anya left the 56th floor feeling lighter than she had in years, the city sprawling beneath her not as a symbol of distant power, but as a landscape of possibility. She knew her journey was just beginning, but for the first time, she felt like she was walking on solid ground, a firm foundation built on the unshakable principles of kindness and dignity. The air in the old newspaper office, tucked away on a side street far from the gleaming towers of commerce, smelled of ink, paper, and the faint, metallic tang of yesterday's news. It was a place of fading glory, of stories that had once held the city captive, now largely forgotten. The Sterling Times, once a titan of journalism, was struggling. Its circulation had dwindled, its relevance questioned in an age of instant digital information. Yet, it was here that Anya found herself, holding a crisp, folded copy of the paper, a symbol of a different kind of legacy. Mr. Davies had arranged the meeting. He had spoken of his deep respect for journalism, for the role of the press in holding power accountable, and for the stories that shaped public discourse. He believed that even in this digital age, there was still a place for the tangible narrative, for the well-researched article that offered depth and context. Anya, now in her role as employee liaison for the Sterling Tower, had been tasked with an unusual assignment: to personally deliver a copy of the Sterling Times to Mr. Sterling himself, the aloof and enigmatic founder of the empire. Anya understood the symbolism. Mr. Sterling was notoriously private, rarely seen or heard from. The newspaper, with its focus on investigative reporting and public interest, represented a potential bridge, a way to re-engage him with the world he had helped build. The copy of the paper she held was not just any edition. It was one featuring an in-depth article about the revitalization efforts within the Sterling Tower, detailing new employee welfare programs and community initiatives that Anya herself had helped shape. Her name was subtly mentioned, alongside Mr. Davies, as a key contributor. She walked through the hushed corridors of Mr. Sterling's private suite within the tower, her footsteps echoing on the thick carpet. The space was elegantly appointed, filled with books and artifacts, a testament to a life of immense achievement. She was greeted by a stern-faced assistant who, after confirming her identity and purpose, finally led her to a dimly lit study. There, seated behind a sprawling mahogany desk, was Arthur Sterling. He was older than Anya had imagined, his face etched with the lines of decades of decision-making, his eyes holding a sharp, scrutinizing gaze. He looked less like a king of industry and more like a scholar who had stumbled into immense power. He didn't greet her with warmth, but with a direct, almost challenging question. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice surprisingly reedy. Anya, holding out the newspaper, kept her composure. "Mr. Sterling," she began, her voice steady, "Mr. Davies asked me to deliver this to you personally. It's the latest edition of the Sterling Times. There's an article in it that we believe you'll find illuminating." She placed the paper on his desk, carefully unfolding it so the prominent headline and her name, alongside Mr. Davies, were visible. Sterling's eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the front page. His gaze lingered on the article, on the names. He picked up the newspaper, his fingers tracing the ink. Anya watched him, her heart pounding a little faster. This was the man who had built it all, the titan whose decisions had shaped thousands of lives, including her own, in ways she was only just beginning to understand. He looked up from the paper, his gaze now fixed on Anya. There was no immediate dismissal, no curt rebuff. Instead, a question formed on his lips, a question that hinted at a depth of curiosity Anya hadn't expected. "Illuminating, you say?" he murmured, his eyes glinting. "And what exactly is it that you believe will illuminate my understanding, young woman?" Anya took a breath, ready to articulate the hopes and values that had brought her to this unexpected moment, this quiet confrontation between past legacy and future vision. Arthur Sterling ran a contemplative finger over the printed words of the article. It detailed the ongoing transformation of the Sterling Tower, not just in terms of business strategy, but in its commitment to its people. Anya's name was there, mentioned as a key player in fostering employee well-being, a voice elevated from the cleaning staff to a recognized contributor. Mr. Davies' accompanying words spoke of a new era, one where profits were balanced with purpose, and where dignity was a tangible asset. Sterling's expression remained unreadable, a mask honed by years of ruthless negotiation. But his eyes, sharp and intelligent, betrayed a flicker of something akin to surprise. He looked from the newspaper to Anya, a woman whose humble uniform stood in stark contrast to the opulent surroundings. "You," he said, his voice devoid of warmth but not of interest. "You are the one who has been instrumental in these people-centric initiatives." Anya nodded, her posture straight, her voice clear. "I am, sir. With Mr. Davies' guidance and support. We believe that the success of the Sterling Tower is intrinsically linked to the well-being of everyone who works within its walls. A happy, respected employee is a dedicated employee. And their dignity is paramount." She spoke with an earnestness that was unpracticed but profoundly felt, the culmination of years of witnessing hardship and understanding the quiet strength of those who endured it. Sterling leaned back in his chair, a heavy sigh escaping him. He picked up the newspaper again, holding it at arm's length as if examining a specimen. Dignity, he mused, the word tasting foreign on his tongue. A curious commodity in the world of business. Most prefer profit margins. He then looked directly at Anya, his gaze unnervingly penetrating. Tell me, what is it that you truly see in this building, Anya? Beyond the polished floors and the executive suites, what is the reality you experience? Anya didn't hesitate. She spoke of the early mornings, the silent hours before dawn when the building was asleep, but her work was just beginning. She spoke of the brief smiles exchanged with security guards, the quiet nod from fellow cleaners, the shared weariness and resilience. She spoke of Maria, the young mother, and the quiet desperation in her eyes, a desperation that had been met, Anya hoped, with a flicker of hope through a shared sandwich. She spoke of Frank, the guard, his surprised delight at a simple $5 bill, a recognition of his unseen labor. She spoke not of complaints or demands, but of observations, of the subtle currents of human experience that flowed beneath the surface of corporate transactions. She spoke of the importance of being seen, of being acknowledged, not for performance metrics, but for fundamental human worth. Her words were not accusatory, but reflective, painting a picture of the Sterling Tower not as a monolithic entity, but as a community of individuals, each with their own struggles and aspirations. As Anya spoke, Arthur Sterling listened, his expression unreadable. He did not interrupt, did not dismiss. He simply absorbed her words, his sharp gaze never leaving her face. Anya felt no fear, only a quiet conviction, a certainty that she was stating a fundamental truth. She had seen the hidden lives, the quiet dignity, and she was simply reflecting it back to the man who had built the empire, the man who, perhaps, had forgotten what it truly meant to lead. Arthur Sterling remained silent for a long moment after Anya had finished speaking. The only sound was the soft whirring of unseen machines and the distant hum of the city. He turned the newspaper over in his hands, his gaze no longer focused on the article, but on its very texture, its weight, its tangible reality. It was a stark contrast to the digital ephemera that often dominated the news cycle. Finally, he spoke, his reedy voice carrying an unexpected weight. You speak of things very few people bother to notice, Anya. Or perhaps they notice, but they do not possess the language to articulate. My years have been spent building. Building structures, building empires. I confess, I may have neglected to adequately build community, connection. He set the newspaper down on his desk. Its headline about revitalized employee welfare now seeming to shimmer with a newfound significance. Mr. Davies has always been a man of unconventional wisdom. He seeks out these overlooked narratives, these quiet truths. He believes that true strength lies not in dominating, but in understanding, in supporting. Sterling's gaze drifted towards the window, towards the vast expanse of the city he had so powerfully shaped. Perhaps, he mused, more to himself than to Anya, perhaps profit and purpose are not mutually exclusive. Perhaps they are, in fact, intertwined. He then turned his sharp gaze back to Anya, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something akin to admiration in his eyes. You have a remarkable clarity, Anya, a grounded perspective. You see the foundation upon which all of this enterprise is built, the human foundation. He picked up a pen from his desk, a heavy, ornate instrument, and gestured for Anya to approach. Mr. Davies tells me you have been instrumental in implementing new outreach programs for staff, programs that offer tangible assistance, a helping hand when needed. Anya nodded. Yes, sir. We've established a small fund to help employees facing unexpected financial hardship, for things like medical needs or emergency situations. She thought of Maria, and a quiet hope bloomed within her. It's not about charity, she clarified, but about recognizing that everyone encounters challenges and that a little support can make all the difference. Sterling dipped the pen in an inkwell and, with a deliberate hand, wrote something on a small notepad. He then tore off the sheet and handed it to Anya. "This is a personal directive," he said, his voice firm, "to ensure that your initiatives have the resources they need. Consider this an investment, Anya. An investment in the true assets of this company, its people." Anya took the note, her hands trembling slightly. It was a simple piece of paper, but it represented an unimaginable shift, a direct affirmation from the highest level of the Sterling Empire. The man who had once seemed so distant, so unapproachable, was now entrusting her with a tangible role in shaping its future, a future built on the very principles she held dear. Anya left Arthur Sterling's study with a sense of profound disbelief and a heart full of quiet triumph. The directive he had given her, a signed authorization for substantial funding for employee assistance programs, felt heavier than any cleaning supplies she had ever carried. It wasn't just money, it was a stamp of approval, a validation of her years of quiet observation and her unshakable belief in the power of human dignity. She was no longer just an invisible cleaner. She was a force for change within one of the city's most iconic institutions. As she walked back through the Sterling Tower, the gleaming halls and polished surfaces seemed to shimmer with a new light. She passed Frank, the security guard, who gave her a knowing, grateful smile, his $5 bill still tucked safely in his pocket. She saw Maria, her eyes brighter than Anya had seen them in weeks, engaged in a cheerful conversation with a colleague near the elevators. Anya knew, with a certainty that settled deep within her, that the seeds of change had been planted, and that this new funding would help them bloom. She found herself back on the 30th floor, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. The executive suites, still humming with a subdued energy, felt different now. Less like a stage for power plays and more like a place where real work, real impact could happen. She saw Mrs. Albright, who offered a warm, understanding smile as Anya passed. The unspoken acknowledgement of their shared experience of the events that had unfolded passed between them like a secret. Then, Anya saw him. Mr. Davies, impeccably dressed, but still with that air of quiet humility, stood by the large window, his gaze once again sweeping over the city. He turned as she approached, his eyes radiating that same warmth and intelligence. "Anya," he said, his voice carrying a note of genuine pleasure, "Arthur enjoyed your illuminating presentation." Anya smiled, a broad, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Davies." It was an honor. She then held out the note Mr. Sterling had given her. He authorized funding for the assistance programs. Mr. Davies took the note, his brow furrowing slightly as he read it. Then a slow, satisfied smile spread across his face. "Excellent," he said, his gaze meeting Anya. "Arthur recognizes true value when he sees it, and he sees it in you, Anya. And in the work you are doing." He then gestured towards the spacious, sunlit executive dining room, empty at this hour. "We have much to discuss," he said, "plans to make. And perhaps it's time for Anya, the observant one, to help us plan the menu." He winked, and Anya understood. It wasn't just about the funding, it was about her continued involvement, her voice being heard. As they walked towards the dining room, the city spread out below them, no longer a distant spectacle, but a vibrant tapestry of lives and stories. Anya thought about the journey that had brought her here, from the quiet anonymity of the lobby to this elevated position, her hands now holding not a mop, but the promise of a better future for countless individuals. The second sandwich, the unscheduled meeting, Arthur Sterling's renewed engagement. It all felt like a cascade of perfectly timed events, each one building upon the last, a testament to the enduring power of kindness and the transformative impact of seeing the inherent worth in every single person. The grand ballroom of the Sterling Tower was transformed. Gone were the stark, impersonal hues of everyday business. Tonight, it pulsed with warmth and soft light, a celebration not of profit margins, but of people. Chandeliers dripped with crystal, casting a warm glow over the assembled guests. Anya, no longer in her gray uniform, but in a simple, elegant dress, stood near the stage, a quiet observer once more, but a vastly different observer than before. This was the company's annual gala, an event that had always been a rather stiff affair, focused on networking and self-congratulation. But tonight, under the guidance of Mr. Davies and with Arthur Sterling's surprising endorsement, it was different. The guest list included not just executives and investors, but cleaners, security guards, administrative staff, cafeteria workers, everyone who contributed to the Sterling Towers ecosystem. It was a testament to Anya's vision for inclusivity, a vision she had championed and brought to fruition. Mr. Davies, looking distinguished in a sharp suit, stood beside her, a proud smile gracing his lips. "It's everything you hoped for and more, Anya," he said, his voice warm. "Look around. Everyone is here. Everyone is acknowledged." Anya's heart swelled. She saw Frank beaming, sharing a story with an executive. She saw Maria, her face radiant, her son, looking much healthier, holding her hand, his shy smile a testament to the successful treatment made possible by the new fund. These were the true metrics of success, the unquantifiable victories that meant more than any balance sheet. Then, the applause began, a slow build that swelled into a thunderous ovation. The spotlight shifted towards the stage, and Arthur Sterling, a figure rarely seen in public, walked onto it, holding a microphone. He looked older, perhaps, but his eyes held a new spark, a quiet satisfaction. He scanned the audience, his gaze finding Anya, and he offered a subtle, knowing nod. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling began, his voice still reedy but now carrying a powerful resonance. "For many years, this building has been known for its ambition, its monumental achievements. But tonight, we celebrate a different kind of achievement, an achievement of spirit, of connection." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I confess I have spent my life building walls, building empires. I believed strength was in isolation, in dominance. I was wrong." His gaze swept across the room, lingering on the faces of the employees. "It is not in the height of our towers, nor in the span of our influence, that true strength resides. It resides in the quiet dignity of every individual who contributes to our success. It resides in the kindness we extend to one another, the support we offer when life becomes challenging, the recognition we give to the unseen labor that holds everything together." He then spoke of Anya, not as an employee, but as a visionary. He recounted her journey, the seemingly small acts that had led to profound change. He spoke of the child's drawing, of the $5 bill, of the shared sandwich, and how these simple symbols had revealed deeper truths about the human heart. He highlighted her instrumental role in creating the Employee Assistance Fund, a program that had already begun to rewrite lives. "Tonight," Sterling continued, his voice gaining in conviction, "we are not just celebrating the Sterling Tower. We are celebrating the Sterling community. And its architect, Anya, the woman who reminded us that the greatest wealth is not measured in dollars, but in dignity, in compassion, and in the unwavering belief that every single person matters." The ballroom erupted in applause, a wave of genuine appreciation and shared joy. Anya felt tears welling in her eyes, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. Her journey from the invisible cleaner to the architect of connection was complete, yet just beginning. Mr. Davies squeezed her hand, his smile a silent testament to their shared belief. As the spotlight illuminated her, Anya raised her hand in a grateful acknowledgement, a silent promise that the foundation of kindness and dignity would continue to shape the future of the Sterling Tower, a testament to the universal truth that the smallest gesture, born of a pure heart, can indeed change everything. Make sure to subscribe for more such videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.